My name is Eric Osno. I'm Associate Librarian here at the McCracken Research Library here at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, and my colleague Mac Frost and I work at the McCracken Research Library. If anyone wants to come look at any books or any pictures, you should come see us this afternoon, and we will be glad to help you. There are a lot of people helped out as usual, helped put this on. I can't even remember them all. We got Bruce Sowers helping with the tablecloth. We got Jeff Schrind filming. We got John Gallagher, Jeff Dunham, and Eric Simpson with their technical help, Sam Hanna. A lot of other people helped put this together, and we couldn't do it without them. And we could not do it without you. We're really gratified. Mac and I were just saying, this is really cool to see all these people here coming out when it's... Is it up to 0 yet? Anyway, I've been inside all day. Really great to see you people here on a day like this. Well, maybe
Eric,
we're getting a little bit of cabin fever.
Eric, before we go any further, I'd just like to get a show of hands. How many people in the audience here are pilots? Okay.
I got another one for you. How many people here have been to Switchback Ranch? Oh,
right.
Wow. Well, you've got me beat on both scores. Well, anyway, before we get started, I'd like to give a special thanks to the members who are here today. Members help support the general operations of the center and keep going. So if you're not a member, I encourage you to sign up at the front desk. You can also go to centerofthewest.org/membership and join. But today, Bob has brought a great guest with us today. We got Fred Briesch, pilot. Fred started out in the Air Force. I think that's where he learned how to fly. And he worked for Marathon /USX. I guess he bought out Marathon at a certain point, 31 years. And I asked him, so he's flown all over the world, and he said that none of it was preparation for what he's going to talk about today, which is flying into Switchback Ranch. Total pilot, 61 years for Fred. Anyway, with that, I give you Bob Richard and Fred Briesch.
Thank all of you for coming today. It's a little chilly out there. In fact, I told somebody I'm ready for spring. I don't know about you, but what a nice turnout, and seeing the people that have been to the Switchback Ranch. I have been working with Fred for the last few weeks, looking at his photographs and trying to trim it down to our talk today. And I think you're in for a very enjoyable time, and a couple of plane rides going in and out, as well as visiting the ranch itself. And I'm proud to be up here with a pilot of Fred's experience. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fred.
Thank you, Bob. And thank everybody for coming. And it's really terrifying now to me, knowing that there are a bunch of pilots up there that have flown into the Switchback Ranch. So I guess I have to keep the bull down, keep it honest, fly straight and level. So it's great to be here, and this is what happens when you have some interesting photographs and you turn them over to Bob. You're liable to end up here in the hot seat like I am right now. But
Don't let him kid you. He hasn't missed but a couple of talks when he flew back to see his children last summer. But they have been here to all the talks.
Yep.
Here's your airplane.
Yep. This is the 206, and it's a really great airplane. This is in the hangar here in Cody, when the Switchback owned the hangar here. They've since sold the hangar and sold the airplane. So,
Next.
go ahead. Yeah, this is the entry door was on the other side of the airplane. On this side, there's a cargo door in back, so it opened 2 doors. So it was very flexible, perfect for the ranch, where you had you might have 2 or 3 passengers on board, and you had access to load the back of the airplane.
How many pounds could you carry?
With just the pilot, you could go up to like 800 pounds, and it scaled down from there. So, some of it, we didn't weigh everything. A lot of the time we were not overweight so much, but we were bulked out, had too much bulky stuff. So the airplane typically was full. We had dogs, dead animals, elk horns, and several scared passengers numerous times. But it was a lot of fun. Here's the airplane up on the ranch. That's the airstrip. And just pretty rough, just basically extremely hard. Lots of rocks. So if you went up there, it's a good idea to have good tires and good maintenance on your airplane. And I think that's one thing we had was Buck Curry, one of the local mechanics here, took care of the airplane, and Buck was fantastic. And David Lucian, the owner of the ranch, just supported the aviation department 100%. We didn't spare any expense. And this was one of them. This is an engine cover we ended up putting on there, and this is fitting for today, you know, because we would go up there quite often and it would be close to zero, sometimes a little below. And with the airplane sitting out there, it's going to cool down real fast. So you know, tough on the battery, tough on the engine. So this cover came in real handy. And this is probably from like the Dead Indian area, I think. Yep, looking up into Sunlight Basin, and this is the kind of thing you just never get tired of. I know some people talk about flying as being hours of boredom and this and that, but I never found it that way.
But the green spot on the ranch in the Dilworth bench,
Right there. Those two big meadows, those two clearings is where the ranch is at. And then the right up here on this upper bench is where the runway is at. Here's a slightly better picture.
Yeah, that's a good one. This is more over Bald Ridge, I believe, area, and this is where we would typically cross over to start the descent for landing. So if you flew that route very often, you knew there was going to be turbulence somewhere along the way. And you have a lot of mountains and interesting terrain. You have Hart Mountain, you have these mountains, you have the basin, and you have the opening to the canyon, which you'll see here in a little bit. But just terrific. Here's a scene in the winter. We actually did quite a bit of winter flying, so that was always pretty challenging because contamination of the airstrip there was snow and ice. And the ranch managers were always extremely competent and capable, and they had the machines up there, and that made the whole operation safe. We never took any chances, never cut any corners, and I always loved it in the winter. It was just some spectacular scenery, and like I say, I wore my camera out, maybe taking these pictures. It was great.
And this is right over the Two Dot Ranch property over here on the left. And this is the Chief Joseph Scenic Highway winding its way up the valley.
And here's the route direct from Cody direct to the ranch is 24 miles. That's nautical miles. So you come by Hart Mountains on your right, Pat O'Hara on your left. Fantastic scenery, and here's Bald Ridge, and that's the natural canal. Corral, not a canal. And this is always so fantastic because you didn't want to be too high if the weather was good enough, the winds weren't too strong. I like to be down low, so I just passed over Bald Ridge, and then dropped down, got some drag on the airplane, and started the descent. And that was all. I just thought that was so neat because you crested Bald Ridge, and it's like the whole world just fell away from you, and it's just spectacular. So that's an interesting feature that you don't see typically. Bob, you know more.
That's Pat O'Hara Creek, and that's the Oxbow above the Two Dot Ranch. And let's go to the next photograph. This is looking down on it. And then another one we slipped in here next. That's Lloyd Taggart, when he owned the 2 Dot overlooking the Oxbow, and that's a natural formation where, as the mountain rose, the Batahara Creek cut that Oxbow naturally into the rocks, and it's still there. And when you fly over it, you can see that. And just a special photograph. We can go on to the next, unless you want to add something, Mac.
Well, just that this is what is known geologically as an entrenched meander. And if you've ever seen some of the country down in southern Utah and northern Arizona, you'll have seen entrenched meanders all over the place down there, especially the goosenecks of the San Juan. It's an interesting state park to go to, right down on the border area between Utah and Arizona.
Yeah, here's another. This is kind of what I'm talking about. If it was nice, the winds weren't bad, and the turbulence wasn't too bad. It was just a real, being a pilot, you kind of like some of those interesting sensations you get when you're flying. And you could just, you dropped right off that ledge there. And the heights actually scare me when I'm standing next to a high terrain or a bridge, but up here, it's just totally spectacular. There's the ranch, and Mac, you can show them that. And there's the canyon. Yeah, you can see the Clark's Fork Canyon winding out to
Ranch is right there. And,
Crandall area. Yeah.
and then this is kind of a summer view.
Yep. And that was the amazing thing about flying in there. Spring, summer, winter, fall, morning, early morning, evening, afternoon. It was a treat. They did pay me a little bit to do it, but I might have done it for free if they'd asked. I don't know. It was great. Here's a great shot of the whole, pretty much the entire ranch property. There's the airstrip up there, and the road that comes up to the airstrip to access the airstrip. And down below there, you see the ranch and the ranch buildings. Let's see, off to the left, and the meadows and horse corrals and various things there. Just spectacular. And this is what it looks like in the winter. So the winter offers you some interesting challenges because everything's kind of flat. You don't have the depth perception, and things don't show up. In this case, the runway was totally snow covered, but we could accept, if it was a light powdery snow, we could accept 2 to 3 inches of light powdery snow. And what the ranch manager would do, he'd get up there, check for animals. The elk were always a potential issue up there. And then he would take his vehicle and outline the airstrip. So I knew where the airstrip was, and of course by then I'm getting familiar with everything. And this was the approach route in. I think you can see the runway up in that corner.
Way
Mac.
up here.
Yeah, Mac. And then here are the elk, and these little rascals could be virtually anywhere, and I was always very concerned about that. Sometimes we'd have them on both sides of the airstrip, and the ranch manager running back and forth trying to keep them off. And we never had a close call, but that's always a consideration. And then in the summer, they would have the cattle up there. So then we'd have to chase the cattle off. And the cattle liked to chew on the airplane if they could, if it had to stay there anytime. So they put an electric fence around it to protect it. And here's the airstrip. Mac, maybe you can point that out.
Right here.
Yep. And then what your approach route, this is right along your approach route. You can see there's a little indentation there. And the best way to do this, because you're flying with a load typically, is you're down to a minimum speed. The airplane's totally stabilized. And you come down that right at the tree level virtually there, and then you aim for the 2 little trees right up there, which you pick up as you come around the corner. So it's an interesting technique, and I think it's the safest way to get in there when you're flying an airplane that maybe a light airplane, you wouldn't have this, it wouldn't be critical, but in the 206, you wanted to actually touch down right by those two little trees there. And that allowed you to lose speed because it's uphill at that point, but then at midpoint, it's downhill. So the more speed you could use, the better. And because it's a nice rough runway, it really beats things up. And here you can see the kind of terrain. You can see how irregular, erratic it is, and it's not quite straight. And there are the two little trees down at the bottom. And that was always my target, and I wanted to have the left wing pass right over those, and you're back at just about 65 knots, just above stall speed. So I like to hear the stall horn come on just as I touch down. I was happy with a landing like that because I didn't have to use a lot of braking or anything. And then here's the airstrip in the winter, and I think this winter we had quite a bit of snow, so they were battling that and ended up shortening the airstrip somewhat. But in the winter it's nice and cold, and the density altitude is the air is very dense, so airplanes love that, engines love that, propellers love that. So the runway length, even though it was shorter in the winter, was really never a problem. So there you can see the little road where the vehicles come up, and that year we had quite a bit of snow. Yep, next one, Mac. And that's the end, which actually the runway goes quite a bit past that. So, yeah, it was quite a bit shorter on that time, but again, the aircraft performance is just fine in the nice cold temps. There's a good look at it. See, normally the runway would end down at the bottom. There's a couple big rocks down there. So this would be...
You want to stop by there.
Yeah, you didn't want to hit any of that stuff.
These next few photographs that you're going to look at are going to give you the reason why the ranch is called the Switchback Ranch.
Originally a trail, and then the Morrisons got in there in the 40s, and they brought a D2 cat in over the top from Long Lake, and they started carving the Switchback Trail into a four-wheel drive Jeep road. And while the Morrisons owned it, the 4 or 5 years they had it, they wore out a Willys Jeep every year, and they got nothing but junk when they traded it in with Flieger at Flieger Motors here in Cody and got a new Jeep. There's 21 or 22 switchbacks. Think about that. Today, it's a very dangerous road. People have lost their lives, but that's looking out the window and right down it. And people are now walking in there because the road is so bad.
Yeah, this was, I wouldn't drive up there. I'm glad I got to fly in, Bob.
I agree. I'd rather fly too.
Yeah.
And even with that short wheelbase Willys Jeep, they would have to back up some of these slopes. They'd pull up here, and there just wasn't enough room to turn around, so they'd back up the next one, go forward, back up, go forward, and just inchworm their way up the side of the mountain.
Yeah, that's right. We were, Nate Hoffert and I, the ranch manager, were flying in one day, and he got a call, and a couple had been going up the switchbacks and unfortunately tipped over, and they both died in that accident. And Nate got the call, and we flew over the area. We could see the accident site, and unfortunately Nate had to go down, and I think he was part of the emergency services there in Clark and kind of stabilize the situation. So, you know, heartbreaking things like that happened, and that was kind of a sobering moment for us all. Sorry to have seen that happen. And here's again, the runway. This is looking at, let's see, out to the east. There's Bald Ridge. You can see the little slot there where when weather was good, I'd try and just crest that and then descend down. And what we do is fly alongside the runway. There was a windsock on the east end and a windsock on the west end and check the winds. We had a weather station on the airport, so I had the barometer and local winds, which are very important, and the temperature for computing density altitude. So it was just another thing the ranch did to support the flight operations. We were very careful with all of that. And this is looking to the west. You can just see Pilot and Index Peak out there, always a fantastic sight. And this is right up at the top, so as you crested this, then you were downhill. So just all those little variables you kind of had to think about a little bit when you were going in there.
And way down here at this last little spot, this is the spot where you want to stop, ultimately.
Yeah, if you could.
The canyon is just over a little further.
Yeah. And this is one of the windsocks, and usually we'd go up there, check those things out. And this day, that's about a 15-knot breeze. Does that check with you, Bob?
Yes.
You're the aviation expert.
No.
Yeah, you are.
You've earned that.
Don't let him fool you, folks. This guy used to fly on and off carriers in the Gulf of Tonkin.
Well, we're watching a different show today.
So here we are. This is an approach to landing on a nice day. This would be a beautiful day. The kind of day you just love to fly in there.
Looking up there in the background is Trout Peak.
So here we're basically on like we call a downwind leg. What you do is configure the airplane. What we wanted to have done was have the airplane at 65 knots, everything trimmed, everything stabilized, and full flaps. Sorry, Mac. So because when you get down in here a little further, you don't want to be making a lot of power adjustments. The only power adjustments you would make would be for gusts and downdraft that would develop. Here we are turning in. This would be like base leg. We're on a left base. And now we pick up that little indentation right here, and I'm shooting for this little line of trees over here to the left. Getting down in here, speed, everything's set. You're not hearing the engine accelerate because it's a very nice day, but you want to look for elk, animals in here.
And bears.
And bears, everything's up there. So right down over these trees, and then here's my little trees up here. So just a little left turn. Nice steady power. And right over those trees. And a little landing uphill. And there's the stall horn, perfect. Okay, I like that one. So it's a little bumpy. That makes it kind of fun, kind of exciting. But that was a perfect day. It was always a delight flying in there. Sometimes it was a little more challenging, and like I say, especially the turbulence. When I had passengers, I always got some interesting sounds out of the passengers when they were coming in. I had one lady, the ranch manager, and was bringing her in, and it was extremely turbulent, snow-covered, and she really wanted to get to the ranch. And she said, "Yeah, we need to go." And I said, "Okay, I think we could go." So it's just bumpy as can be. It was even for me. And every bump we hit, she'd go, "Ooh, ooh, ooh." And I kept hearing that all the way down. I thought, what is that? Oh, yeah, okay, it's no problem. I felt the same way myself sometimes. But we just pull the aircraft off the side here, and You see the shed, mainly used for equipment. The 206 wouldn't fit in there, but it did block the wind when the wind was blowing out of the west. So that was it. A perfect day on the Switchback. Yeah. That's what Scott Moore always did when he landed and landed safely. Right, Scott?
I'm here to testify that you were a good pilot.
I don't know about that. But this is interesting. I had this taken because I flew this wolf out in a plastic bag and brought him back as a wall mount. And I thought, I should get my picture taken with that. And when I actually saw him, I thought, wow, that is an impressive animal. So that was cool. And this is my co-pilot, CB Sue Briesch, right here. And she flew with me numerous times, and she keeps me straight. We have our own little light plane, and she's always there working the iPad and watching out for me. And so she got to fly into the Switchback a number of times. And I think on this one, we were going up, the ranch manager and his wife, Nate and Emmy Hoffert, had invited us up for a tour because I kind of wanted to see things, and as I was figuring out various things about the ranch. So we went up that day, and I think there's some pictures that follow that show that. And this is Sherry Michael, and she was the last ranch manager, the wife that I flew. And this is some of the passenger loads we had. You know, here's this nice dog they had, and I'm like, we have a dog in back and 2 cats, and the airplane's absolutely stuffed. And Sherry, this is her first flight in there, and she was smiling, and it was just phenomenal flying them in. She was so nice, and she's the one that, when we came in on that snowy, nasty day, she was going, ooh, ooh, ooh. And when we landed that day, she said, thank you, because we got, and I said, yeah, thank you, I'm glad we made it. That was a chubby dog, and then there's dog back here, 2 cats, airplane loaded. This is what I say when we say we bulked out, and the 206 was really great for that. We had the cargo door, you could throw stuff in there, you weren't worried about weight. Yeah, that airplane flew like that a lot. And there, that's Jeff, her husband, unloading, and this is when they were moving in, so yeah, that's Jeff and Sherry. Great people, great ranching people. I think Nate and Emmy Hoffert and Jeff, the ones I flew, were terrific. I never met anybody I wouldn't say wanted to call a friend. They were great. It's great working for these wonderful people. Yep, next. So there's the dog. I think he's happy to be on the ground. I flew him out too, so that was quite a scene. And this is, there's Scott Moore, I think. Yep, Scott. There's Scott, and we had a trip in there with the veterinarian, Dr. Scott Moore, and that's his technical assistant there, and come up to the ranch to take care of the horses, dogs, everything. Beautiful day. This is Emmy Hoffert and Cadence and Grant, the 2 little kids there. They were fantastic. They flew with us. And little Cadence there, she could spot elk. I could never find elk that she would spot. And I can't believe it. There's elk down there? And she said, yep. She was amazing. And there she is. She's getting a little bigger, and she found this animal had fallen down and got covered up, and she dug this out. So she was, they had more horns up, elk horns up there, or antlers, than you can shake a stick at. That was in the shed. And here's, this picture here probably made it all worthwhile, because I'd flown up in the morning, and Emmy was coming up with the kids, and we were gonna head back in town. So I walked down the strip, it's in the spring, and then they come up, and Cadence and Grant came running up like that, and they called me Mr. Fred. So little Grant, he's just screaming, Mr. Fred, Mr. Fred, Mr. Fred, and puts out his arms and grabs me. Yeah, I thought that was so good because we've got 11 grandkids and, we're a little further away from them. So they were my adopted grandkids when I was flying in there. It's great fun. Taking care of the horses. This was a great retirement spot for the horses, I heard. And here's the newest addition. This is Callie. So picked Callie and Cadence up a lot and flew them in, strapped her down in her little device in the back. So there she is. Great little kids. That was so much fun. Here we are, we're getting a tour. That's Nate and Grant, and giving us a tour of the buildings. So you'll notice these buildings, again, like I think Bob was saying, David Lucian really is a Western man and treasures the West and the architecture and the art, furniture, the buildings, and this was a real crown jewel in his real estate holdings, and it was just beautiful to see. There's CB on our tour, and Cadence showing us some bunk rooms. Just lots of beautiful stuff like that. Everybody's smiling. You got to smile on when you're up there on the switchback. It's too nice. Some beautiful artwork. I always love seeing the buildings. I like to hang out in the main lodge, and I can do that when Grant would let me alone. I was always wanting to go up there and read or look around or do something, and he was always saying, Mr. Fred, let's go. We got to go look at this or look at that. Beautiful furniture. Just, look at the horns. So, fantastic tour, and this is in the main lodge, and that picture painting there is absolutely beautiful. Really enjoyed that.
And of course, you can see those mountains from the lodge.
Yeah, Pilot and Index Peak, absolutely. And they took us out along the canyon, so I'm a little afraid of heights, so I put CB over there on the side of the cliff.
From a pilot, he's afraid of heights.
I don't know, it's the way it is. I'd rather be safe.
Yes, here.
Safety was always my priority, whether it was flying or otherwise. So there's Cadence, and I'm like, Cadence, you can see she's kind of like, she's ready to push back, but I CB's standing there, look at that. Like, good heavens.
And at this point, the edge of the cliff there actually curls underneath, and it's kind of an overhang. And I measured it using Google Earth the other day, and it's about an 800-foot drop, a little over 800 feet.
Mac,
But
it's
it's
not the
straight
drop.
down.
Mac, it's not the drop, it's the landing that hurts.
That's what kills you, yes. Sudden stop at the end of it.
Yeah. So here's the terrain up there, there's not a whole lot of dirt. Obviously there's a little bit, but it's, what is that, granite, Mac?
Precambrian granite.
Precambrian granite, yeah. And then where the airstrip is at, that's on the Dilworth Bench, and that's a sedimentary layer and some limestone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's fascinating terrain. Here we are at the top of the switchbacks, and they go down just to the left there. And again, CB standing that way. Just rougher than you can imagine. And so it was a real beautiful day and just fantastic to look down there through the canyon. And I don't know, it's a little bit of almost like being in heaven, I think.
And this is Bald Peak up here on the end, and this is the rest of Bald Ridge, the extreme northeastern end of it. And then the mouth of the canyon is right down here.
Yeah, this is the across the canyon, there is actually the Nez Perce Trail. That's the, is that the trail they came down when they went out through the canyon and up into Montana then, I think.
And that's where they have the Appaloosa ride every 2 or 3 years when they do it.
So quite a bit of history there for the local area, and a lot of books written about that. Wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to stand there and look at that. And that's Emmy Hoffert and Grant down there, just kind of showing CB all the rocks. And this is the final upward, I guess, thrust or part of the road. But I mean, you can see those rocks. You have to drive over those, so you better be very careful.
We always say those rocks grow every year right out of the ground.
And those are all just scattered granite boulders.
Yeah, yeah. That was always the problem on the switchbacks. They would fall down there. They were always a hazard. So this is from the main lodge on the porch. Looking out, that's the ranch manager's house there, and work shed to the left of that. And I don't know what the peaks are around there. Bob knows those.
That's Trout Peak with the snow on it in the distance looking south.
Correct.
Yeah.
And look at all the beautiful garden boulders.
I don't think they had to fly those in or anything.
I don't
either.
think they did either.
Yeah, just gorgeous. Yeah, the boulders, the rocks, they really kept this really neat. I mean, it was grassy, nice. Of course, this is very early spring, but it would be very beautiful, lush, green. Yeah, just fantastic. And this is the main porch, the ranch manager's house down to the right. Beautiful views everywhere.
And if you look over the top of the ranch manager's house, up here, you can see the switchbacks of the Chief Joseph Scenic Highway.
Inside the main lodge, beautiful mounts everywhere, mountain goats. That's a big kitty cat up there. Beautiful furniture, all Western. Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic place to be. In part of my flying, sometimes we would wait a few hours here and there and in different cities, whatever, and we always had nice facilities as part of my occupation when I was working with Marathon, and would go to these places, but nothing could top this for a pilot's hangout while he was waiting for the ranch manager and the veterinarian to do their work. Scott was having fun, I don't know, doing what they do to horses, and I was doing this. Just great, beautiful artwork. Yes, beautiful mounts. I don't know what that animal is.
It's probably a bobcat and a chucker.
Yeah. Beautiful kitchen in the main lodge. And David Lucian wrote quite often of the fantastic Super Bowl parties they'd had up on the ranch, and it's in his book. So, but he said anybody from Cody was welcome, as long as you got yourself there and you got yourself back home. I can't imagine what that'd have been like at night. Probably 0 temperatures on the switchbacks. Just as another one of the buildings, again, fantastic buildings, architecture, furniture. You could feel at home in a split second there and really enjoy it. Yeah. This is probably this was, as they told me, the oldest building, and was the tack barn. So kind of historic. So they kept that as it was, nicely maintained. And That's in the spring here, so, and that was on our tours, so we were, they were showing us the inside the tack barn here. A lot of saddles. Bob said those saddles weren't used that much, but
They're not old saddles, they're used once in a while.
I think they'd have guests up there and they would get definitely some use, but not excessive. And I never rode a horse up there. Those horses scare me, actually. And this is the other end of the Switchback Ranch. This is the, let's see, the right end up near Grand.
Right Ranch, yeah.
Right Ranch, yeah. And Clark's Fork River right there. And this is an airstrip there, the beautiful grass airstrip. And the aircraft they used to go in there was a Swiss Pilatus PC-6. And I never flew that. I flew in it, but it had amazing performance characteristics of extremely short field takeoff and landing. Turboprop engine, I think it was probably somewhere around 700 horsepower. And they would use that here and several other places. But just a gorgeous setting.
Having seen this particular picture, I decided that we needed a little bit more description about where the Right Ranch is, because I don't think very many people know where it's at or have even seen it. So I went out on Google Earth and created this snapshot. Here's the ranch up here. This is the Chief Joseph Scenic Highway. Right down here is the entrance into the Reef Creek Campground. And here's the access road. It's a Forest Service road. Goes all the way down and across the bridge to the ranch. And if you look real carefully, something that I noticed that I never knew was there before having seen this photo, there's a little lake right here. The road goes right by it, but it's blocked off from the view. The road is depressed in this area, and you have to look over these hills to even know that the lake is there. It's a pretty good-sized little lake, and there's an access road down to it, but you never know it's there as you drive by. So,
Yep. So this was part of our tours CB and I took. We went down to the Wright Ranch. We drove down that road, Mac. It's quite a long road, and it's that last part, it's very steep. So you need a four-wheel or at least a good solid a Tahoe or something to get in there. I think we had our Tahoe, so we got in there. But I'm like, wow, this is pretty interesting. So got down there, and I mean, beautiful buildings. Again, these are just pictures of that day. Grass, absolutely fantastic. Some of the buildings there. And the usual thing, they have all kinds of animals down there, and the wolves frequent the place, so pretty incredible for the ranch manager. He told us all these stories, and yeah, it's pretty nice. And there's the manager. Yeah, let me see. What was his name? Darwin. Yep, Darwin Emmett. Darwin and Kim Emmett, and just wonderful people. I flew him several times. We took some hunting trips to South Dakota, supporting the ranch. It was a hunting mission, and he was great, just a terrific guy, and his wife too. They have eggs there, chickens. They'd always bring eggs up, leave them in the hangar. CB and I had fresh eggs, you know.
and the groundskeeper was a full-time job, I'm sure, with all that lawn.
Oh man, it's gorgeous. It would have been fun landing the 206 in there. I think you could probably do it, but I think that might be even scarier than the other strip. But gorgeous.
No rocks.
Huh?
No rocks.
No rocks. I mean, I know. I looked at that. I thought that'd be fantastic. Easy on the tires. This is a kind of a building that I think they had for entertainment and set right along the ranch, side of the ranch with the water, the river there, the Clark's Fork. Yeah, CB was walking over there with Darwin. Very, very beautiful. Awful nice of them to take the time to show us around. Yeah, beautiful rooms, mounts. Brings back a lot of memories. Of course, I guess it's been 3 years since they sold the airplane and the hangar, so it's a special privilege. Beautiful kitchen, man.
And then we have one more flight into the ranch, this time in the winter.
Something you haven't mentioned is you always flew over at least once or more times, checking the strip, checking the air, and before you made an approach to land. Another safety factor.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, it's just part of professional flying. You want to concentrate on safety and do everything safe. So it's a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, and like Bob said, this flight over the airstrip was very critical to look at the conditions on the airstrip, looking for animals, because the elk can be anywhere up in there. And
Those in the mountains are kind of soft.
yeah, there was a storm coming in, so you couldn't see pilot or index. So here I think this is a left turn, still losing altitude. And this was a little bit of a challenging approach and landing and departure because the airstrip was shorter. There was snow piled up on the sides, and it was very turbulent and bumpy. And there's an area in there where just as you come in to make the little left turn, where you get a pretty significant downdraft anytime there's like 20 knots or so. So that's what we had today, and I think you'll hear the engine rev up. So you want to try and keep your speed stable, but you allow a margin there too. So here we are. Yep. Okay, I think I fly over the strip low here. Yeah, there you can see the strip. And the little trees I use for my final lineup, that's target. There's a windsock on this end, so carefully evaluate that windsock. And the winds change quite a bit, so you know they can be 20 knots with a gust to 30, and then they can drop off a little bit. So the nature of the terrain around there, the wind obviously is shaped by the terrain. So here we are. At this point, you're down to about 300 feet. So you don't fly a typical pattern, and you start to slow the airplane down. Check this windsock over here on the left. And we're making our, what you call a crosswind turn here. And putting out some flaps, stabilizing the airplane at about 65 knots. I think on this day, I was using 75 because of the gust factor. So you want to be real careful on a day like that. And we're about to turn downwind. And here you run right along the edge of the canyon. And another thing you do is, when you're doing this, is you still in the back of your mind, you have to be aware that, okay, if the engine quits, where am I going? So you're always thinking that. And here you're getting ready to do the left turn. This is coming on to final. Unfortunately, up there, sometimes there isn't a whole lot of places to go. So that's why high quality equipment and maintenance and training is very important in aviation, as Bob knows. Okay, here we are. This is a little higher than typical. You see we're bumping around. I just accelerated the engine there, probably had a downdraft. I'm trying to get down because I don't want to be too high. Because you want to, as you get down in here, you want to have the airspeed where you want it. So you're working carefully at that. You're looking for animals. You're looking at the windsock. And now I'm bringing the power back a little bit. I got the runway real nice. There are my trees. And we reduce power. There's a stall horn. That's good. When the stall horn goes off, you still have a margin. But when you're using short field techniques, you have to be near the stall environment. So Sherry was really happy to be down here. And I don't know if you probably can't hear her, but she said, right in here, she says, "Thank you." I thought that was... And then she said, "Are we stuck?" And I said, "Yeah, we may need some help," because we were stuck for a little bit. It didn't keep turning, but added a little power and got the airplane through the snow. Again, the 206 is a great airplane, just a workhorse and perfect for the range. So we're coming back up. There's Jeff. He's happy to see his wife. She finally made it. And those are just some of the challenges of being on the Switchback Ranch. I'm sure the current people that are managing things up there are confronted with all these things. So it was really a privilege for me to have had the opportunity to fly for the ranch and have a wonderful look at God's beautiful.
I'd like to add a couple of things here. Fred, that was a great trip. Thank you.
Oh.
Really appreciate it. I didn't think it was appropriate to have other photographs, but a quick history. George Dilworth homesteaded there in 1914, and the bench was named after him. And a Henry Vernon Weatherman came in and bought it in 1923. And then a gentleman by the name of Jess Symington bought both homesteads in the middle 20s. And he named it the Switchback Ranch because of the trail coming up out of the canyon. And he had a very successful moonshine business. And then in 1939, he brought a small bulldozer, a D2, in from Long Lake up on top of the Beartooth. And in 1946, a Walt Ewing brought the first Willys Jeep after World War II in over the top and to the ranch. In 1948, Charlie Morrison bought the Switchback Ranch, and he had 3 or 4 kids, as I remember, 3 kids. And you held up 4 and 3 here. One was a classmate of mine, and I did one trip in there and out with him, and I said I'd never go back. I did fly after that. And the other thing I wanted to mention, following Charlie, Jack Bugis bought the ranch, and then David Lucian has the ranch today. Elmer Foss, in fact, Joanne, his daughter, is here today. Went in and out of there. They fly in just for lunch. I'm not sure I would do that, but Elmer used to land up on Rattlesnake Mountain quite often too. Then Cecil McMillan, a classmate of mine, flew in and out for 14 years. Another classmate of mine, Larry Nielsen, flew with Cecil for 7 years. And then there was a ranch manager, Randy Brayton, that learned to fly, and that was Jack Brayton's son. And he flew in and out with a Super Cub. And then Fred came along and spent 6 years there. And what a compliment to all these men that flew in and out of a place that I think was, you had to be the very best to get in and out of there. And a few of them did stack a plane up there. And I know that Elmer broke a strut there and had to go back in, and he took his welding equipment, and somehow the plane caught fire, so he didn't have to fix it. But anyway, lots of good stories and more. But I think this was a real treat for you and me to have Fred here, and this is the time for questions. And Fred, again, thank you very much for a great presentation.
Yes, Sue.
I was wondering when that, the tack room barn building, what year that was built?
I do not know the dates, yeah.
It's the oldest building still standing.
Yeah, it was the first one built up there. I wonder what year that was.
Yes, Dorothy.
How did they get the truck and how did they get gas up there?
How did they get the truck in and how did they get gas up there?
I think the truck came over the top from Long Lake.
No, it went in from the bottom. It goes in, they took 300 gallons in the back of the Jeep pickup in there when Randall was up there.
Okay. And they,
When Randall Brayton was up there, they took it in the back of a Jeep pickup, 300 gallons at a time.
okay,
Now they life flight stuff
Yes.
across from up on top.
yeah. I think they use helicopters out of, they did use, they had a helicopter lift every spring. So they would stage across the canyon and lift across with kind of pretty much a heavy lift helicopter. So gas, propane, various things, yeah. Machinery.
This isn't a question or answer, but I'd really love to just share an experience I had about 27 years ago with Jess's Roofing, which I look around and see a lot of people that have been on their roofs, but Town Construction was constructing one of the houses, buildings up there, and he had Jess's Roofing, which we done his roofing, go in there, and we flew in there, and it's my son and I, we was in there for a week, and everything was fine, we just loved it up there, but going out, we had called Cecil McMillan to come in and pick us up right in the middle of the day, and it was in June, not a good stable time of the year to be flying in there, and he was pretty agitated when he come in there, and anyway, he just said, we can't take your equipment. He said, we're lucky if we can get out of here ourselves. So anyway, he finally went down the runway, pushing on the choke, and it was spitting and sputtering, or was it gonna get up? And going across the canyon, that was terrifying. And anyway, at one point, we figured it dropped like 200 feet. And I just remember Cecil grabbing their grab bar, and I did too, like that was gonna do any good. Her son was in the back, and I didn't even look at him. I know he was as white as a sheet. Fortunately, Marty had thought about going in there with us, and she decided, no, she didn't want to do that. But anyway, finally, we got out of there, and but it really brings back some memories.
Yeah, it's an exciting place to fly into. And when you do it over time, like I say, all the seasons, all the different conditions, it's different than having a perfect day, as you saw in the last landing. But that's part of the business. So I was glad to do it.
Jess, thank you for sharing that with us.
I had to get it off my chest.
Very briefly, Kirk Wagner here. The Sheriff's Office in Search and Rescue has owned 3 different aircraft over the years. The first one was an Army surplus Piper Cub that came from Italy. Elmer Foss rebuilt that for us. The second one was a Super Cub that we got at half price, basically, from Hoodoo Ranch. And most recently, we got an Avian Husky, which, by the way, is made in Wyoming, from Switchback Ranch, when they decided that they didn't need two. Ours was almost worn out when we got it. It had 11 hours on it.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to hand this down to Richard Jones.
I just wanted to, I've flown down in the canyon in my plane and then done search and rescue missions in a helicopter for the whole canyon. But just as a note, there's 4 power lines that go across that canyon just south of Antelope Butte that you cannot see, and they're not on the charts. So if anybody thinks about flying right there, you can see the poles on each side of the canyon. And I've even walked down there right to those poles, and you cannot see those power lines. So like when they flew in the Wright Ranch in the PC-6, or I'm sure most guys know about that, but they're not on the charts and they're not flagged. So, and then also a little note about the switchbacks. When John Bugis owned it, he was the vice president of Ford Motor Company, and I was up there in the 70s. And one time when he was like back was saying you back up, something happened in the transmission, and that Bronco started to roll back, and it got caught on a rock. And he had that Bronco flown back to Detroit to see what happened to it.
I had a quick question. Since they sold the airplane and the hangar, what are they doing now to get in and out?
Now they're supporting the ranch, the aviation support out of Big Timber, Montana. I think they have I'm not sure if the Porter is in Maine on floats, and I think they have a turboprop, I can't think of the name of it. It's a very capable turboprop airplane. I think they do fly that in occasionally to support the ranch, but I think when they removed the cattle, they stopped the cattle operation, there was a lot less requirement for service, and I'm not sure what the managers there are doing and how much support they get. I know they do get some support. It's out of Big Timber.
The main reason it's out of Big Timber is because David Luchin has purchased a number of ranches up in the Big Timber area, most notably the Lazy K Bar Ranch in the Crazy Mountains. He owns a checkerboard ranch. He's the largest landowner in the Crazies. As a matter of fact, his land actually is Crazy Mountain. And Big Timber is the closest airport to the Crazies. And then it can also service all the rest of the land that the Switchback Ranch has purchased between Red Lodge and Nye, Montana. If you've ever driven up the Stillwater River, Nye is this beautiful little single building incorporated town. They have a sign out in front of it, and on both the front and the back it says, "Entering and leaving Nye, Montana." But there are several Switchback Ranch gates and things like that, and a huge ranch on one of the dirt roads between Nye and Luther.
I just had a quick little story. My father had a mechanic shop in Cody for many, many years. He was a great friend of Elmer Faust. And one time Elmer called him and said, "We have an airplane up on the Switchback Ranch, and they can't get it started. Could you fly in with me and we'll see if we can fix it?" So my dad said, yeah, and they flew in and landed there. And Dad went to work on that airplane, discovered that it had a situation where the fuel tank on the right wing and the left wing were connected. And they landed, and evidently the landing strip has a little bit of a tilt to it, downhill across the track. And they parked it and they went away, and then they came back and all the fuel went out of the uphill wing and into the downhill wing. And they were switched to the wrong fuel tank, and they thought something was wrong, and it was just out of gas. So we figured that out for them.
Good story.
Yeah,
Thank you.
interesting story.
We got a question over here.
I just wanted to ask if that Pilatus Porter is still operational on that other ranch?
As far as I know, it's still operational, and the last I heard, they have it on floats on the coast of Maine to service a property. David actually owns an island just off the coast of Maine, so they fly back and forth.
Okay, so it's not around here?
I don't think so.
No.
That's a beautiful aircraft, and
Yep.
The only other time I've ever seen one was in that movie Air America.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, exactly. They flew those over in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. Yep.
Any other questions for Fred and Bob?
I don't really have a question, but I wanted to tell you
Hold the
something.
mic closer to your lip.
I wanted to tell you something you might be interested in. You talked about Jess Huntington having a still up there. When I was a girl, he used to come down to Clark dressed as a little old lady in a wheelchair and bootleg whiskey out of the wheelchair.
I don't get a mic, but this would address that Pilatus. There is a Pilatus on the field over on the, I think it might be Lucian's old hangar that is owned by an outfit up in South Fork. And I'll see what, you'll see practice every once in a while. So there are, as far as I know, there's still a Pilatus on the field.
Have people pick up evaluations.
All right, thanks very much, people. I forgot to tell you guys something really important. I know everyone's been getting a little cabin fever locked up in the house with your television set and your dogs, and we have the perfect antidote. A signed autograph book from by Bob Richard for you to read. Bob will be signing books upstairs after. I'd also like to mention the McCracken Library is putting these on, and we have put together a survey to indicate to us how we can better serve you people, and those surveys are up at the front door or the back on the way out, and if you could get one of those and fill them out, we would really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks to Fred and Bob. Nice work if you can get it.
I appreciate all the feedback I get after each of our talks, and thank you for coming out today in one cold, miserable day. Thank you again for being here. Good luck.